Welcome back to our work camping adventure. If you're new to our channel, welcome aboard. I'm Jill and my partner is Charles, and we're spending the winter volunteering at Kofa Wildlife Refuge in Arizona. We've been boondocking here for about 3 weeks now, and we're so glad we have 3 more months to explore because this place is huge, and it feels even bigger because there's not a single paved road that runs through it. Good morning. It is still Christmas week. We were about to take off and look for some new spots to explore today when Tim showed up, and he's here to fix our brakes. Well, having these trucks lifted sure makes it easier to work on them, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I think your phone is ringing. We sometimes have trouble with people thinking this is a public porta potty. It only gets cleaned out once every 2 weeks, which sounds often until you use it exclusively for a family of 2 every day. Tim suggested that we might put a padlock on it when we go away, and that's a great idea. Well, it looks like the consensus is we need one more part from the auto parts store, which would not be a big deal in the city, but the city is actually 65 miles away. So we are in the desert where water is scarce and precious. So let's talk about water. Some people might be wondering why a wildlife refuge would go to the trouble of maintaining and improving water sources for the animals, and even on occasion trucking water to those sources when it gets really scarce. I happen to be an ecologist, so I might be tempted to give an hour lecture on this topic, and I will try not to. I'll be very brief. This wildlife refuge and others like it are the last places that certain wildlife are able to survive. And for the most part, this is great habitat for bighorn sheep, for Sonoran pronghorn, for desert tortoises, and other things that people really want to keep alive out here. But when water is scarce, they have nowhere else to go. So it's really important to make sure that they are able to get water. One of the ways that that's accomplished is to closely monitor and improve the water sources. There are a number of different kinds of water sources. We'll talk about each one of those in this video. We've been getting to know each different type and what kinds of things are done to make sure that they are still operational. So for example, there are a few natural springs in the area. This one is called Jasper Spring, and it's now piped into a wildlife drinker, and it's protected by this burrow fence to keep out feral donkeys and feral horses that would drink all of the water. This well is called 12 Mile Well, and it's a great example of why the wind power is being converted to solar. There's not enough breeze here today to turn the windmill, but the pump is running just fine on solar. Honeybees love the wildlife drinkers. This looks like a pretty special watering hole. This one is called Horse Tanks. It's the most water we've seen in one place since we've been here. Here's the dam that has increased its water holding capacity. And right now, after the rain, it's still holding water in several places downstream as well. There are a variety of different kinds of watering systems out here on the refuge. There are some places where the hard rock has been carved out by water in the past, and these series of plunge pools are called tinajas. In many places, the tinajas have been enhanced by dams in an effort to hold even more water for the wildlife, including this big one called horse tanks. So, we have a confession to make. Neither one of us is very good at meal planning, and we have never quite got lunch sorted out properly. We're more inclined to pack a bag of snacks and have it try to last the week than try to figure out each lunch and bring it with us. And let's see, the pickings are getting slim in our snack bag. We're due for a grocery run, so let's see what we've got. Apples, clementines, turkey jerky, mixed nuts, the end of a bag of trail mix. The last of the apples we dehydrated at Charles's mom's house in Missouri, and pistachios.
And bees.
And bees. Interested in our snacks. And look what I missed. Peanut butter pretzels. Water. Water. More water. And finally, we have water in this tote that we use to refill the canister. And while we're on the subject of being prepared, we don't have much of a cell signal here.
It's a Garmin GPS. It's a transceiver rather than just a receiver. We say when we're leaving our campsite, and it uploads a message to a bunch of people at the office and lets them know that we're leaving our campsite. And then if we're going to go on a strenuous hike or one that could be a little dangerous, just do a check-in, and that tells everybody we're checking in, we're okay, and gives our coordinates.
And this all operates on satellites, so it doesn't require a cell signal.
And it's also has an SOS feature. So if you're in real trouble, you can hit SOS and it sends a signal to a lot of people.
Today's cactus of the day is a prickly pear. I think this is a beaver tail prickly pear with short little spines, but it is more purple than any that I've seen out here. It's gorgeous. Good afternoon. It's a windy day, and we're going to go out and check some traffic counters. So there are some ancient devices that have been set up to count traffic to the refuge, and we're going to go hunt them down and find out how many cars they've counted over the past month and reset them for the following month. It's working!
13.
This one's a little busier. This is another type of drinker called a catchment or a guzzler. And right here, there's a swale that empties into the catchment area, flows down into the tubes and gets stored underground and feeds the drinker. And Charles is putting the tape measure down the vent to measure the water level underground where it's stored. The wildlife refuge may lose a water source here and there for different reasons, and they're also monitoring which animals are using the water sources. So if the water sources are drying up in a given year, they can prioritize water sources that are being used by bighorn sheep and Sonoran pronghorn. Good morning, or at least we hoped it was. And then I washed the dishes and the water did not get warm, so we're trying to figure out what is wrong with our hot water heater. There's two ways to heat hot water in here. We can heat it with electric, which we would only do if we had abundant electricity. And we heat with propane, which is what we've been doing lately. Neither one appears to be heating the water at this time. So the question is why?
Well, I'm looking at the wiring diagram for the hot water heater, and since neither electric or gas is working, it has to be one of two or three things. One, it's the 12 volts to the switch, which is then provided down to the control board as got a blown fuse or something, or the temperature sensors are bad, saying it's already hot, so don't let it come on. It's the only two things I can see, except for a bad control board. Must be, I think, the thermal cutoff for the thermostat.
Which is simple, except that we need a new one.
Yes.
We're so glad to have you coming along for the ride as we explore the refuge, and we would love to answer your questions in future videos, so please put those in the comments below. See you in a few weeks.
Cutoff is a device installed in the power supply line. This will shut off the electrical power and stop the heater operation when activated. In order to restore power and proper operation of the water heater, the obstruction must be removed and the thermal cutoff must be replaced. It's basically a fuse. So if it gets too hot, it blows.
Are you being ignored, sweetie?